Hello everyone, welcome to Highly Intelligent. I'm your host, Jared Martin, and I'll let my guest today introduce himself.
Hey Jared, good to be here. My name's Matteo Lundgren. Just super stoked to have a conversation with you today about whatever we're going to get into, so I'm glad to be here.
Well, I could start off with asking you where you were born.
That's a great question. I was born in Jamestown, New York.
Yeah?
That's about 3.5 hours away from where we are now in Ithaca, to a big Italian-Swedish family.
Yeah?
Yeah, 2 brothers. My mother's side of the family, she's a triplet, my mom, and she has 8 siblings, so I grew up with a bunch of aunts and uncles, and what a joy it was.
Big old family.
Big old family.
Yeah. So when you were young, what career path did you see yourself going down?
Well, gosh, before I actually answer that, let me just give a little background of what I do right now.
Yeah.
I work as a counselor, as a mentor for a program called Upward Bound, and I've been working as a mentor and teacher for the past 17 years in a professional way. With Upward Bound, I've been doing it for the past 5 years, and basically my big mission is to really help create breakthroughs for students. And when I say breakthroughs, what I'm trying to do is help them illuminate something within themselves where they're like, oh my gosh, I figured something out for myself that's not influenced by someone else, not my parents or my friends. It's like I found a desire in me that's mine.
Yeah.
And then I try to help them figure out how to move towards that thing. How do you get the thing that you want? And all through counseling and therapy, I've done it in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different contexts. It's like, how do I help people, students in particular, figure out what they want and why they want it? How do I help them understand that they're the creators of a story and it's their story? And so that's sort of been my sort of mission for the past several years as a counselor and a therapist, is like to help people find out what it is that is truly going to light them on fire so that they move towards that path and start creating a better world for not only themselves but for everyone else.
So before you got into Upward Bound,
Yeah.
what would you want to do? Like,
Yeah. What
your
did I want
little
to do?
your little squirt sitting in the living room thinking about what you're gonna do when you're done with school.
Right. Oh my gosh, I had all sorts of ideas. When I was young, I loved sports, so I always thought maybe I could be into sports. I was a very curious person, Jared. I was like, gosh, what could I do? I could do all sorts of things. And my dad, he was in construction, so I imagined that. But my dad was always like, no, you don't want to do this. You want to go to college, and you got to find out a better career path because this is too much. This is too hard of work. And he would always say that. And I got a lot of respect for my dad because he'd work 364 days a year. Didn't matter how cold it was outside. He was outside working.
Dang.
He was making money for the family. I total respect for my dad. He worked his butt off so that he could give his kids a life that he considered better. That there was no financial insecurity. He didn't want his family to ever feel that because he grew up that way. So for me, I had this freedom, and I was blessed with that freedom to really explore. So I was like, oh, you know what? I remember my first job at Dairy Queen. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work at Dairy Queen. I'm like, I don't like this, but I'm making some money. But while I was working at Dairy Queen, I was like, well, how could I make some real money?
Yeah.
And that's my first entrepreneurial gig. I started my own DJ business.
You were a DJ?
I was a DJ.
I did not know about this.
Yeah. I was like talking to my friend at Dairy Queen. We're flipping burgers and we're like, well, let's start a DJ business. I was a junior in high school. And we were like, we need speakers. First, we got to get speakers. How are we going to get lights? How are we going to do school dances? And so that was my first taste of like making my own money. We bought some speakers, we rented lights, and we had our first school dance. It was the first school dance of my senior year. And then we just launched into a 6-year business.
Wow.
Just doing weddings and anniversary parties, but that was huge for me. I was my own boss.
Yeah.
It felt cool. But I was still influenced by my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so forceful about getting me to go to college that DJing never felt like it was going to be a career.
Yeah.
It was just a thing I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lot of lessons being a DJ. And so then I went to college. Yeah, and to answer your question, it was like, well, I guess I'll be a teacher. That was sort of what I got to. It was like, well, I could be a chemistry teacher. Wait, I'm not that good at chemistry. Oh, I could be a math teacher. Oh, yeah, I'm really good at math. And my dad was like, oh, you are really good at math. So I was like, oh, yeah, I'll just be a math teacher.
Yeah.
My dad always was saying things like, you want to do a job where you don't have to work that hard.
Yeah.
Get your own office. So math teaching didn't work out for me for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being, I didn't really like to talk about math.
Yeah.
Math wasn't that cool. I was good at it, but it wasn't that cool. And so in college, finally, I got to this point where it was like, you know what's cool, Jared? Learning about human beings.
Yeah.
And the avenue that was presented to me was through psychology.
I see.
And that's how I got into counseling.
So I know you were on a reality show at one point.
That's true.
When did that happen?
Wow. We're going to make a big leap. Okay, well, let me preface that. So I'm in my psychology. I get my master's degree. I'm excited about life. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go be a counselor. I moved to Colorado. I get all these jobs. I'm exploring life, meet these people, do some traveling. And fast forward 6-7 years, all of a sudden I'm in LA, in downtown Los Angeles. That's right, people, California. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing with my life?
Mm-hmm.
And there was this huge moment while I was in the concrete jungle of LA. I was feeling the pressure of like this collapse happening, you know, like economic collapse. Mm-hmm. It was right when Occupy Wall Street was happening. Do you remember that?
I don't think I do.
Do you know what that was all about? It was like...
I'd probably explain it.
Yeah, it was like these big banks were too big to fail.
Yeah.
So they're being bailed out by our government.
Oh, dang.
In 2010-ish, you know, after that big crash, our government was bailing out big banks after they made our country go broke. Yeah. And all these big CEOs were making all this bonus checks, hundreds of millions of dollars, even though their companies failed and destroyed a lot of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So people were Occupy Wall Street, and I felt like this whole world was going to collapse. I'm in downtown LA seeing all these protests. I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't know what it truly means to be human in this world.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. What does it mean to be human? I'm reading all these books about like ancestral skills and primitive skills like like friction fire making and identifying wild plants because I want to know where my food comes from, all that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm reading the Army Survival Manual book, like whatever that's called.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one rule in human survival, do you know what that is?
Food, shelter, and water.
Well, yeah, but the sequence is important. What's the number one thing out of those things?
Water.
No. I thought it was water too. Shelter. Shelter. If you're stuck in the woods, first thing you need to consider is a shelter.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in my little apartment in downtown LA, looking out across all these huge buildings, and I realized as a 28-year-old man, I didn't know how to build my own shelter.
Dang.
And if that's the number one most important thing to be human,
yeah,
I can't build my own shelter.
And your dad worked in construction too.
That's right. I mean, we did windows and roofing.
Oh, yeah.
We were building we weren't building whole houses. We were making them better, right? But I didn't really learn how to build a house.
Yeah.
You can work for someone and not learn anything. You know this, being in school. You can be in a class hall for a whole year and not learn anything, even though you got 90s or 80s or whatever, right? So I'm sitting in my apartment. You imagine this.
Yeah.
Just going, 28 years old, lived this really awesome life, but I don't know what it means to be a human because I can't build a shelter.
Yeah.
And it sort of freaked me out. And it inspired me because when I get freaked out, I don't know if you're like this, but I'm like this. When I feel pressure, I don't like collapse in it. My dad really taught me when you feel pressure, like you rise up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I felt that pressure, I was like, I've got to learn how to build my own shelter.
Yeah.
And the one thing I was doing, I started researching. I was like, I got to figure out how to build my own shelter. And I didn't want to build my own shelter the normal way, because the normal way has a ton of ecological costs.
What would you say the normal way is? Like just architecture and following building codes and such?
Not necessarily. No, the normal way is buying stuff at Home Depot. Conventional lumber, meaning traditional 2x4, 2x6 dimensional lumber that are in 6, 8 foot, 12 foot lengths. And then you just stud a whole house out, a square house out with studs. I didn't want to do that. It's a huge cost on the environment, because all of this wood is coming from, tree plantations all across the planet.
Yeah.
Being transported to Home Depots all across our country. Not good for the planet. Huge carbon footprint. So I didn't want that. And that's when I discovered this guy, Conrad Rogue, out of Southern Oregon. And he was doing something called cob building.
I see.
Cob has nothing to do with corn. It's clay, sand, and straw. And Conrad was offering an apprenticeship to build a whole house, a mud house, clay, sand, and straw, from the ground up, and learn how to do it. And I'm in LA, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
And so I drove my car up to Southern Oregon. I was an apprentice for his company called House Alive. You can check them out, housealive.org. And, let the bell ring, my friends. Let the bell ring. Important moment. So I went to Conrad's place, built a mud house for 3 months from the ground up, living in a tent the whole entire time. So every day I would wake up and I'd start mixing mud. I'd start sculpting the walls. He taught me how to do plumbing and electrical. We cut down trees with hand saws. I was like illuminated. I was like, this is what it must feel like to be human.
Yeah.
It was my mission. That's what I wanted. I wanted to feel human. I was sleeping outside. I didn't know how to sleep outside. I was sleeping in a tent for 3 months. I'd never done anything like it.
Yeah.
So I felt human. I mean, rawness a little bit. I felt a little wild. Like, whoa. And every one of my friends, not maybe everyone, but a lot of my friends, including my parents, thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Don't you want to be in a heated house or some building in a school counseling people? And I was like, I don't. I want to be outside. I want to learn something that makes me more human. Yeah. Not fit me into this system that when I was looking out my window in LA, I just saw it all collapsing. I saw it all about to collapse. And I wanted to be part of nature, not a part of a city.
Yeah. So, I think we're going to take a break here and we can move to a different location.
Yeah, great.
But we'll get right back to it.
Great.
So we're back, and so far we've covered that Mateo moved out to California and saw that the world was just in economic despair. So he goes up to Oregon to live in the woods and learn how to build a cob house, and really starts to get a taste of what it's like to be human. And so while you're sitting out there, after you learned how to build your cob house, what changed within you to make you go do something?
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a place to go, Jared.
Yeah.
So I was three and a half months into Southern Oregon, and I had my car and all my stuff, and I just learned cob building, and I was so just jazzed about it. I was inspired. I was like alive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to go do more of this. And the entrepreneurial spirit came out in me during that 3 months of building.
Yeah.
Because I sort of feel like there's a real connection between being human and in the modern context, that bridge to being an entrepreneur. So being an entrepreneur in the world that we live in, the modern contemporary world,
Mm-hmm.
feels like a way to at least tap into that like innate knowing that we all
Yeah.
have, that human spirit.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like this risky world. There ain't no salary. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
how much work are you willing to put into it? Like our hunter-gatherer ancestors, it's like, if you don't put work into it, guess what? You ain't gonna eat.
Yeah.
If you don't put work into it, you ain't gonna have a shelter. If you're an entrepreneur, if you don't put any work into it, you're not gonna have business, you're not gonna have money, and you're not gonna pay bills, you ain't gonna have your house, you ain't gonna have your car. So I love the entrepreneurial spirit. So I felt like just my hands all muddy every day, mixing and sculpting and being an artist and a builder. I was feeling that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I want more of it. So I'm just reaching out to all my friends. I'm like, who wants a pizza oven? Because one thing I learned in my apprenticeship was like how to build an earthen pizza oven.
Yeah.
So an outdoor pizza and bread oven, wood fired, epic. So I'm like, hey, I want to come build you a pizza oven. They're like, come down to Durango, Colorado. So I went to a friend's property in Durango, Colorado, built my first oven, taught a workshop.
Wow.
It was epic. I drove my car there. I lived on his land for a couple weeks. Then another person was like, hey, why don't you build one at my house? Which was in Cortez, Colorado. So I drove another hour, was in Cortez, Colorado for a week or so. Now I'm like, where am I going next? I'm out to Denver. All of a sudden, I'm just driving around from cob project to cob project, meeting lots of people that were hosting me. And I was sort of living and working in a work trade context. I'm building you something, you're feeding me, you're paying me a little bit, but I'm not quite sure how to build a business yet because I've just learned the skill.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole time I'm doing it, Jared, this is like before YouTube was a big thing. I'm just videotaping myself, selfie style, showing people what I'm doing.
Yeah.
To not build a YouTube channel, because there was not even YouTube. I mean, I'm sure there was, but this was in 2012 maybe.
Yeah.
But I was doing my videoing so I could show my friends what I was doing, because they didn't know. There was no.
Yeah.
I wanted to show my parents, hey, this is where I am now. It was sort of like a way to do it. And so what I did was, on my YouTube channel, I started to be like posting not every day, but most every day, and it was like day one of my adventure. After I left that cob apprenticeship, day 20, day 55, where am I? I'm hiking. Oh, and now I'm building something else. And now I'm in this waterfall in Northern California. I was all excited and I was showing it. So I did all these videos, right? Fast forward a couple years, I'm in Arizona doing some projects, doing other work, making my way through the world as an entrepreneur. And I get this call from a TV production company.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a total scam.
Yeah. I mean, I would too.
Right? You're like, I've got like maybe 900, 1,000 views on my YouTube channel per video. And this company just calls me up, just writes me an email. I look them up. I'm like, is this a real company? I call them. They sound legit. I talk to this person. They sound legit. Hey, we want to make a TV show out of mud building. Tell us about mud building. I'm like, okay.
Dang.
I'm like, great, I'll tell you about mud building. I tell them all about mud building. They're looking for a project. I'm like, I'm doing this pizza oven thing. I don't know, but they're like, that's not good enough for TV.
Mm-hmm.
We want like a cool house. And I'm like, how am I gonna get a cool house? Well, I'm getting all creative in my mind.
Yeah.
Because I think this is cool. I want to show people this way of building on TV.
Definitely.
So I think of the natural building icon, and there's a natural building icon. His name is Sunray Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
He's like 67 now. He's an amazing builder, artist. Some of the most amazing structures ever. So look him up, Sunray Kelly, amazing dude. I tell the TV production company, well, if you get Sunray Kelly on board, I'll totally do a TV show with you.
Dang.
They call up Sunray Kelly. Sunray Kelly says, yeah, I got an idea. I could build a house. They call me back. They're like, Sunray's in. I'm like, Sunray's in? I don't even know Sunray.
Dang. That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't even know who he is. I mean, I know who he is, but he doesn't know me. All of a sudden, I'm on the phone with Sunray Kelly before me and my partner, Peaches, we fly out to Washington to build this whole house for this TV show. We get contracted out. We do this whole TV show with Sunray Kelly, build this incredible gnome
fairy tale house in the middle of the Washington forest south of Bellingham.
Dang.
I learned so many things from Sunray. I learned from all these people. And at the same time, I'm doing a TV show.
Yeah.
Where the whole world's going to see me being a host of a TV show, building a crazy mud house on TV. What Sunray and I were talking about when we weren't building, we're like, we want the world to know about this, more people, because this is the only way we're going to solve the climate crisis. This is the only way we're going to solve the problem of humanity, which is we're going too digital and we're not human anymore.
And it's not like these houses are not structurally intact either. They're beautiful houses and they're like strong.
Yeah.
But it's just requires a bit more work than studs and some dimensional boards.
Well, I would say it doesn't require more work. I would say it requires different kinds of work.
Different kind.
So in conventional construction, a lot of people think it'll go faster. But in cob construction, if you took into context the time it takes for someone to cut down those trees, mill them all up, and put them in the Home Depot for you to go grab, for them to put it on a semi-truck to deliver to your work site, right? Most builders go, yeah, once I get all my material like that on the site, it's really fast. It's like, yeah, but you didn't make any of that material.
Yeah.
In cob building, you make all your own material right on site. So I'm building all the material from raw material to actual building material like that.
Yeah.
The only way to use dimensional lumber is it's got to cure. How long does it take to cure? Well, you got to let it dry. Well, you got to cut those trees down. Where'd you cut them down? How long did it take to get it? Well, if you did it all by hand, how long would it take?
Yeah.
Because that's how I'm doing it with cob building, by hand. So, sure, is it faster? Yeah, if you use all the resources that you're wasting and all of this carbon emissions, all of this, I guess, unseen costs. You don't see the costs, but there's a lot of them. In cob building, you see it all because you feel it all, because you mix it all, and then you build it from the ground up, baby.
Dang.
Yeah.
So you got this TV show with Sunray Kelly, and so that seems like a higher point than you're at now, like in terms of publicity, because I mean you're in Upward Bound now. So how'd you go from like running a TV show back to Upward Bound?
Good question. Well, I did the TV show. I was working as a school counselor before I did the TV show.
Yeah.
And basically in New York, when we moved here, me and my partner, you can't really build cob in the wintertime here. And so I was earning income in lots of different ways, but I had that background that my dad made me have, right? Master's in counseling psychology. I love being a teacher. That's one of my callings.
Yeah.
I want to inspire breakthroughs. I want to inspire people to be bigger than themselves. I want to inspire people to give more to other people than they would take for themselves.
Yeah.
Because I want to be that way. I want to give it.
Yeah.
This isn't for me. This is for you. That's what I want. I want more people to feel that. I want my daughter to feel it. I want my friends to feel it. I want the world to feel it.
Yeah.
Because that's where life is for me. That's where the joy of life is what I mean, right? Is to give it. Give more.
Yeah.
So I always did this therapy work, and I would always find work doing it. And when we got back from that TV show, I moved to an off-the-grid cabin with my partner, and we didn't really need much money. And she got pregnant, and I was still doing building stuff. I was doing random things around this area and Van Etten, New York. And then when my daughter was born in 2016, in September, well, January 2017 came around. The director of Upward Bound knows how I work with people. I mean, with my cob workshops, I teach workshops to students.
Yeah.
They can be adults, they can be kids, they can be anybody.
Who was the director at the time?
Jen Rudolph.
Oh, okay.
And she was my neighbor. And so she's like, hey, I've got this job with Upward Bound. What do you say you help me out for a few months? I'm like, well, that's great, because I do building in the summer. I'll do it in the winter.
Yeah.
And so I met all of these students in Upward Bound, and I started to feel connected to my mission and purpose, which whether I'm building or I'm mentoring or teaching, it's all with that purpose. I want people to like find that spark in them.
Yeah.
I want people to be like, I am worth it. I am worthy. I want them to feel I am worthy.
Yeah.
Not because of me, because I motivated them. I want them to find that voice.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to work harder for myself so that I can give more. Oh, that's what I want. I want people to feel human and alive, not like robots.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took that job and I started meeting students. I'm like, I'm loving this. I had some flexibility with it. And then I just kept working. I kept doing Cobb things on the side on weekends because I'm an entrepreneur at heart.
Yeah.
But this job feels like an entrepreneurship too, because I'm mentoring, 63 to 123 students and their families. And it's good work for me.
Definitely.
It's important work for me.
Yeah.
And introducing them to all sorts of things, including Cobb. But that's how I got into it, 2017, and now it's 2021, almost 5 years later.
So you've just been in New York doing Upward Bound since you got into it?
Yeah. I've been doing Upward Bound for 5 years, but within that time, I've had many projects. I've traveled to Idaho, built 2 straw bale houses. I did another TV show, another episode for that TV show. So I built another house out in Washington with Sunray Kelly. I've done tons of Cobb building workshops on weekends or weeks. I take vacation from Upward Bound to do these things. So I'm totally involved in the natural building world.
So
As well.
your house that you currently live in, is it a Cobb house?
It is not. No. We bought the land almost 2 years ago. And what you find in the modern world is, like, in order to buy land, I don't have $185,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought this land for $185,000. But I needed to get a mortgage for that.
Mm-hmm.
Banks, I didn't want the mortgage. I didn't want to involve myself with a bank. But my credit union, a cool credit union, I support credit unions over big banks for sure.
Yeah.
They required me to have a salaried job for 2 years in order to get a mortgage.
Dang.
So when I started that Upward Bound job 5 years ago, I realized pretty early on, actually, if I keep this job, I'm going to have a real salaried job, not as an entrepreneur where, you got to, your books need to be all right for banks, and they're like, well, what about that money? And there are all these questions. When you have a salaried job, they have no questions. They're just like, you need 2 years, and once you go 2 years, they're like, okay, you qualify for a mortgage now.
Dang.
Because we see that you have consistent income.
Yeah.
So I made that commitment. I need to stay in this job so that I can buy this land, so that my land, Peaches and I's land, that's my wife, it can be a facility, a whole ground for teaching natural building to everyone, not only in our local area, but the world.
Yeah.
So we could do experimental builds. So we could share this way of building, not only so that people learn building skills that are using ecologically friendly materials,
Yeah.
but also for them to feel more human.
Definitely.
Like, that's what happened to me.
Sitting around playing with clay and rocks and straws definitely gotta bring you back to nature in some sort of context.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially sleeping in a tent for 3 months.
Yeah, totally.
So, you've mentioned to me in the past that you also grow all your own food.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to talk about that a bit?
Sure. Yeah, part of the mission too, we don't grow all of our own food, but we grow a lot of food.
Yeah.
It's very important to me. If you think about the story I told you about being in LA, looking up there, collapse of the whole system, it's like,
Yeah.
What's the number one rule? Shelter. Okay, I got to learn shelter. What's the second rule? Water. So in that respect, what did I do with water was I'm going to harvest all my own spring water. And so from that day on, before I left LA, I would only drink spring water and cook with spring water. So what's spring water? I got to find springs all across the country. If I'm driving around, driving to Durango, driving to Denver, I'm going to find springs on a map and then drive there and fill up 5-gallon carboys so that I can drink only spring water, nothing from the tap.
I listened to a podcast recently about fluoride being in the tap and how dangerous fluoride actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really, questionable with the water I drink because,
Mm-hmm.
it makes you think about what are you putting in yourself that you don't know about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, it may be a small amount that's not going to affect you now, but, if it takes your body this amount of time to get rid of it and you're drinking it every day, then you're putting more of it in your body than you can get rid of, so it's building up.
Yeah. I mean, fluoride's an interesting story. We could talk about that for like a whole podcast.
Definitely.
But fluoride, the reason why they put fluoride in our waters, our municipal waters, was this idea that was presented to the public, which was we need to prevent cavities.
Yeah.
And so it's really the only medicine where we're not actually deciding. So there's no informed consent.
Mm-hmm.
In medical practice, for any medicine to be in you, a doctor to administer a medicine, you have to consent to that medicine.
Yeah.
Even if it's like surgery.
When I was in elementary school, they gave us like little cups of fluoride, and it just tasted like some funny stuff, and they told us not to swallow it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like mouthwash. It was interesting, and I didn't really know the full story until recently.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yeah, what's the consequences of fluoridating our water? Well, you can look into that. I welcome people to look into
definitely.
that. Why do we put chlorine in our drinking water? To kill bacteria. Why do we need to kill all this bacteria? Well, it's probably because we're degrading our environment by using tons of chemicals. Did we have to use chlorine in the past? No. But guess what? When we start putting waste and we're using 60,000 chemicals from the ACA, the American Chemistry Association, that nobody knows what the ramifications of this is for human health in a long-term way. Whoa, dude, intense. So I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to have earth-filtered water because that's what humans were like. So again, back to this human story. It's like shelter, water. So I would travel along the way when I was going to another project, and I would just fill up my carboy. When I moved to Ithaca, New York, I found all of the springs that were around here, which there are several, and just drove there once a week with like 20 gallons of containers and filled it up. And when they were empty, I went back out. It was like a chore.
Dang.
And I did that for my whole entire, I still do that, but right now we have a well.
Yeah.
So with a well, we have a 90-foot well in the property we bought that we were blessed with. And so that water's clean. There's nothing in it. It's just earth-filtered water.
Yeah.
So I drink that water. And so water was number one, right? After shelter. And then what comes next in that Army survival manual? Food.
I see.
So food for me, very important to my well-being, because I want to be stronger at 75 than I am at 39.
Mm-hmm.
So what I put in my body is very, very important. Just like what I put in my mind, what I listen to. So it's like I have to be very conscious about what I'm doing. So I want to grow my own food for many, many reasons. That's a whole podcast in itself. So Peaches is on that same front. That's why our relationship is flourishing, because she and I share the same values.
I see.
And growing our own food is huge. We want to grow it all. Now, it's sort of impossible on some level to grow 100% of the food you need, but we want to grow resilience in that by having a root cellar, by fermenting our vegetables so that we can have all vegetables in the wintertime when nothing can grow in our...
Yeah.
Like, what about nuts? Oh, well, nuts can store all winter long, and that's a huge source of protein and omegas. So it's like, cool, let's harvest nuts in the fall.
Yeah.
From black walnut trees or from, hickory trees, whatever we do, it's all focused on like that human experience, which to me Peaches breaks it down in a different way, but breaks down to shelter, and that's my cob building. Spring or natural water, right? Not contaminated water. And then food, growing my own food, or knowing where that food was, how it was harvested.
So, given this whole natural human experience, would you say that you're a spiritual person? Like, do you believe in spirituality?
Oh, yeah, I would say, there's lots of ways to describe your spiritual self, but for me, personally, I would say that my life is a constant prayer.
Yeah.
And I try to remember that this is all a blessing. And so when I think about spirit or God, I think about that in terms of the whole.
Yeah.
So I think about that in terms of that rock and that mountain and that stream and that river. All is spirit. All is God. The sky, the earth.
Like everything is one.
Everything is one.
Yeah.
You, my friend, embody that spirit. It's in you. It's in me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got shadows that come out, and it's not the way. It's like my ego that's pushing a different kind of being.
Yeah.
But the being that I know is present within us all, that highest self, ooh, yeah, that's spirit to me. That's life.
I see.
Yeah.
So, do you meditate?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any like specific practices that you follow? Because Akiva, who you introduced to me
Sure.
a while back, he told me about that he has a bunch of different breathwork techniques, and he has like a morning routine that he follows.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if there's something similar that you follow.
Yeah. I definitely have a morning routine. One of the things that I do is I wake up quite early, before 6 a.m., around 5 pretty much every day. And when I wake up, I go straight to my bathroom and I skin brush my body. And that's a way to move my lymph. So you can look that up. It's a sort of a Scandinavian kind of health practice. But you skin brush your entire body. After my skin brush, I do a breathing technique called breath of fire. And I don't know if anybody who's listening has ever done that, but it's just through your nose. And it sort of like you breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your nose. And you do that in a rapid way, like this.
Okay.
So you breathe, and so then that turns on this internal kind of combustion inside of me. And right after I do that, breath of fire, I jump into a cold shower. And I do a cold shower, all cold, walk straight into it, and I do all cold, and I do it calmly for 2 minutes.
You know, I have actually been looking at Wim Hof's, like the Iceman, at his stuff, and that's a similar breathing technique to what he has, except he does it through the mouth. And he says that you take a breath all the way in and all the way out with no pausing in between. And then if you do that in cold environments, then you just have to, it like warms your body up, and it makes it easier to bear these temperatures. And like he talks that like being in the cold is like a muscle, and the more you're in the cold, the more you work that muscle, and the more you can like jump into freezing cold lakes or take cold showers every morning.
Yeah, Wim Hof's been a total inspiration for me. So
Yeah.
Wim Hof is spelled WIM space HOF.
Yeah.
For any listener out there, totally look him up. Amazing dude. I do a lot of cold plungings in natural water too in the winter. I love ice cold plunges. Just sitting in there and being calm. So it's like, how do I activate this body so that my mind is clear in the morning? I avoid my phone. I avoid the internet. I avoid coffee right when I wake up. I avoid all of those things, and I try to be true to this body.
Yeah.
Right? That's my spiritual kind of like, I'm not going to drink coffee for at least an hour and a half before I wake up. Because after I get out of that cold shower, I do 25 minutes of yoga. And I do that yoga, and it's a lot of breath work in that yoga. And then if it's a day where I need to do a cardio workout, then I'll do a cardio workout. And I'll do a half an hour of running. Or I'll do a half an hour of a HIIT workout, which is HIIT.
Yeah.
High intensity interval training.
Yeah.
Just to get the cardio moving. So, yeah, there's lots of ways to connect my mind and my body and my spirit. And one way is through the body. And so cold plunging, dude, so dope.
How would you like recommend getting motivation to like take a cold shower, like do a cold plunge? Because I find myself laying in bed in the morning, I'm like, I really don't want to go take a cold shower right now. And then I probably don't go take a cold shower because I just don't feel like it. I probably take a hot shower.
I'll give you a tip that Mel Robbins taught me. She's awesome, kind of, I don't even know what she is, a psychologist, something. She's written many books. But she has a 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And so when you wake up in the morning, you can trick your brain. Because you don't want to sit there and think about it.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you ain't going to do it when you've not done something. See, I don't have to really think about it anymore.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for almost 2 straight years now, the cold water in the morning. Straight up. No. I've missed a day out those 2 years, and I felt it. I felt it. I don't miss any days anymore. I haven't missed a day for months. 8, 9, 10 months, I don't know. But I don't miss a day because my body doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So my tip for people would be, when you wake up, you don't think about what you're doing. You set your intention before you go to bed. This is what I'm going to do when I wake up. I'm going to pop out of bed and I'm going to go for a run. This is what I'm going to do when I wake up. I'm going to wake up, brush my teeth, and then hop into a cold shower. And I'm not going to freak out when I feel the cold water. You wake up, you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you pop out of bed like you're launching, like a space shuttle's about to launch.
Yeah.
That 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, in all psychological, or in the studies that Mel Robbins speaks about, what it does is it triggers the brain to act.
Mm-hmm.
So if you use it, it becomes like a little tool. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It stops thinking, and you're like, here comes the countdown. And you pop up out of bed, go straight to that bathroom, and you activate. So I like the 5, 4 because it's simple. Just try a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Got it. So after your experience and life so far and where you're at, where do you look to improve yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of what I've learned through experts or so-called experts, or what I've learned by masters, people that are just deep in a craft.
Yeah.
Is that the more you learn about something, the less you realize that you actually know.
I see.
And so this is what I've learned from every guy, every person, every mentor I've ever learned from is like, oh crap. They realize that they don't know anything. But they've been doing it for 25 years. Wait, Sunray Kelly, it's like every time I go build, it's new.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I just listen. And through his experience, obviously, he's got a lot of skills. But again, he recognizes that he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
So wild plant experts that I know, they're like, man, there's so many plants I don't know. And I'm like, but you know so much more than me. As an amateur, and I forget the quote, it's a great quote, but amateurs feel like they know everything, and masters know that they know nothing.
Yeah.
Whatever that quote is, it's an epic quote, and it's totally moved me. So I realized that for me, since I was young, and my parents instilled this in me, my dad did this, is that commitment is everything, and I love commitment. It's a trait that I value above every trait. Commitment. I want to be committed. Very early on in my life, I wanted to be committed in all the things. I wanted to be the best basketball player. So I'm going to commit. I'm going to practice. Even though there's snow outside, I'm going to practice.
Yeah.
I wanted to be committed to a partner. So right early on, I didn't want to have multiple girlfriends. I wanted to be married. And I was going to find the one. And I would date women only if I knew I was going to marry them. And 3 of the women that I dated before Peaches, I fell in love with them, and I was going to marry them all. But they broke up with me, thankfully. But they broke up with me, great teachers. But I was committed. Commitment is huge for me. So in my life, the things that I'm practicing is like, I'm now with Peaches, my wife, for almost 9 years. I don't know how to be in a 9-year relationship because I've never been in one.
Yeah.
But I'm committed to learning that in 9 years, I start to uncover and reveal things that are pretty ugly in me that are hidden in a 1-year-long relationship.
Yeah.
They don't come out. They don't come out in 3-year-long relationships. They come out when you've been with someone for 9 years, though, and it's pretty ugly. It's like, whoa, I'm programmed, man. Look at how I responded to that. Is Peaches committed enough to work on herself and work with me as I learn about myself? Yes. So I'm lucky. And I was committed to find that person that wanted to grow with me in relationship. So every day I try to be a better partner.
I see.
Every day I try to be a better dad. I have a 5-year-old daughter. And I know, sure, I've learned I can speak some good things, but guess what? In moments, that's where it matters. In the real thing. When the game's on, not in practice. Not when you're just talking to your friends. It's like, no, when you're with your daughter and she's asking you to play another game of something, that's not really interesting to you.
Yeah. Or
you want to be on your phone, or I want to be on the internet or check my email. It's like, how can I turn that off? Why am I addicted to my phone? Get that phone away from me. I want to be a better dad, not a better phone user.
Yeah.
I want to be a better friend. Should I be on my phone? No. Should I post another Snapchat? No. I should be with my friend. I should be asking people if they need help. That's what I want to be.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm working towards on a daily, little things. How can I service the world better, service my family better, service my community better?
So on the flip side, what do you think is your best quality?
best quality. My best quality is twofold. I've talked about one, so I'll give another one. Definitely, I'm a committed person.
I see.
I'm not going to waver.
Yeah.
And I'm very direct. So a lot of people find that to be refreshing sometimes, because I'm direct. I don't beat around the bush. I look you in the eye and I tell you things that I think.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, I welcome someone calling me out on that wrongness, because I'll say, "Huh, you're right. Oh yeah, I think I might be a little," but I'm direct.
Yeah.
I'm direct. So a lot of people find that refreshing. I love that. So my commitment, my directness, and my enthusiasm, I would say, are my biggest strengths.
So, overall message that you want people to take from this?
Yeah, I would say always, and this is always it, is to be a warrior is what I tell my daughter. I'll give that little story. My daughter's learning how to be in this world, right? She's 5, and I can see her learning different ways of being. And when I say to be a warrior, there's a couple things about being a warrior. And the number one thing about being a warrior is by giving more of yourself to others. That value of like being able to give and not want anything in return, that is going to lead the most fruit. That's going to give you the most joy and happiness that you could ever get, and you're going to get tenfold in return, by God, by spirit, by people. If you're giving not because you want something in return, you're going to give someone value. If you have a business, I'm going to give more than they expect, not because I want more from them, but because that's how I'm going to be in this world.
Yeah.
The apple tree does it. Everything in nature does it. It's like, hey guys, here's all of my fruit. Here's all my nuts. Here's all my seeds. Take them all.
Yeah.
I want you to have them all. Or save some. Give them to the bird. I don't care. Birds, you want them all? Worms, you want them all? Human, you want it all? Take it. Oh, you're going to spray me with chemicals? I'm going to still try to give you. I'm going to still try to give because I'm here to teach. Not shame you, but to give to you. Because through giving is how we're going to change this world. Not by shaming someone, saying you're doing it wrong. I know the right way. No, just give.
Yeah.
And if it's just kindness, just give them kindness. Don't give them bitterness. Don't grow bitterness. Grow kindness. And I'll leave it on this note in terms of I love this advice. Your mind is like a garden. And I forget who gave me this, but
Joe Dirt?
No.
Life's a garden, dig it?
Sort of. But think about this in terms of your mind, right? Whatever you want to plant, just like in your garden, if you plant a seed, it will grow.
Yeah.
Right? Depending on how you nourish that seed, it'll grow in certain ways. But if you got to plant it in order for anything to happen. Because if you don't plant something, what will happen? It's all happenstance. It's all by circumstance. Weeds will grow. Who knows what will grow? Maybe a wild plant will grow and you're like, wow, I could actually eat this. This is great. But our minds are like gardens. So if you plant bitterness, guess what grows? Bitterness. If you're sitting there and you're complaining with your friends and that's how you connect, guess what you're going to grow? Complaining. You're going to complain about the world. What if you're to grow joy? How do you grow joy? How do you seed that? That's what we all want in our lives. How do you grow happiness? What's that seed look like? Because that's what we need to plant in our minds. Now, sometimes it doesn't all, and if you've ever grown a garden, if any of your listeners have ever grown a garden, sometimes all the tomatoes don't come like the way you wanted them to come.
Yeah.
But you're still growing tomatoes. Even if it doesn't work, you're like, you can go, look at this dumb plant. Didn't do what I wanted it to do. Or you go, what happened? What's wrong with my soil?
Yeah.
What could I do differently? Maybe it didn't get enough sun. Did it get too much water? What did I do? Maybe it's not the right species of tomato. Maybe it shouldn't grow here. When you plant happiness or joy, you're not going to just get joy forever. No, but you're going to get something. You're going to learn about it. And you're going to go, I need to add some of my pee to this garden. Because there's nitrogen in your pee. Plants like nitrogen. Oh my gosh. If I just pee on the soil, it gives nitrogen. You add things.
Yeah.
The compost. Oh my God, I can grow my own soil that has tons of nutrients. Yes, you can. Well, what can I add to my mind? That's what I urge everyone to think about. It's like, What are you planting? What are you growing? Because if whatever you're talking about with your friends, you know, you're growing that stuff, dude.
Yeah.
And if it's all just this sort of like surface level bull crap, where it's just like, oh yeah, life is hard. No, I'm never going to be able to do that. You can't do that. Can't. It's like, guess what you get? A lot of can'ts. Our brains are magical things. And if you plant the right thing, your brain will focus on it and your body will move towards it. And you will see that there's magic in this world. And I've seen it within myself, within my friends, and within the clients I work with. When I get them to focus on something and they're like, that's important to me, guess what your brain does? It moves towards that thing and it will find it. So you plant seeds that you want. And whatever it is that you want, plant it. Plant it 100 times. And maybe one of those seeds will grow. And if it doesn't, figure out what's in your soil. And make it a little more nurturing.
Well, thank you for coming on Highly Intelligent. I appreciate you being a guest, and I hope to have you back sometime.
Epic. Great to talk with you, Jared. Love it as always. And yeah, be well.
All right. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode of Highly Intelligent.